By the mid-1980s, Ocean Software were very much at the forefront of 8-bit gaming here in the UK. With big marketing budgets and some hugely successful games under their belt, like many other software publishing houses at the time, they were constantly looking for film and TV licenses to acquire in the hope that a well-received game of the same name will be massively profitable for them. Meanwhile, after a lucrative start for the American network NBC's 1982 futuristic car TV show KnightRider, others started falling over themselves to produce similar ideas. We had not one, but two helicopter shows in Blue Thunder and Airwolf. We had this chap running around calling himself Automan, which from the makers of Tron was a really well done special effects affair compared to some of the others. Then we had the rather short-lived motorbike equivalent on the ABC network called Street Hawk. It followed the adventures of an injured cop called Jesse Mack, who is chosen to ride a top-secret government-built attack bike called a Street Hawk. He uses it to combat crime in the Los Angeles area, with each episode offering a different story. It only ran for 13 episodes from January 1985 to May of the same year, but was picked up in the UK by ITV at the beginning of that March and replaced KnightRider in the Thursday night 7:30 PM slot. It had everything it needed to succeed, honestly, but perhaps trod on KnightRider's toes a bit too much. Whatever the reason for it to be cancelled, I have fond memories of it, although it would have possibly been recorded due to clashes with Top of the Pops and family favourite Only Fools and Horses on at the same time over on BBC One. So at some point during this time, Ocean Software picked up the license for Street Hawk to make a video game after successfully picking up the KnightRider one too. As was often the case for Ocean at this time, the development work for the game was farmed out to freelance programmers, who were often teenagers who could not always entirely stick to the deadlines promised. In the book The History of Ocean Software by Chris Wilkins and Roger Keane, company director at the time Gary Bracey confirms the issues that constantly hindered them from making deadlines. For money up front to start the development process, freelancers would promise to finish game in something like a 3-month window, only to get to the agreed deadline and sometimes demand more money or more time to get things done. Quite often, they really didn't give a shit. Gary's words, not mine. And they put publishing houses like Ocean in an uncomfortable position. Of course, deadlines were extremely important for marketing purposes, but that wasn't necessarily the main driving force. In the 1980s and beyond, mail order catalogues were huge business in the UK. Freeman's, Great Universal, Littlewoods, and the hugely popular Kay's catalogue, to name but a few, were massively popular, particularly for fashionable clothing and lingerie. So naturally, Ocean were keen to get their games into the catalogues and did so with the K's one. The problem though was that huge catalogues were printed quite some time in advance, and once printed and distributed could obviously not be changed. So if something in the catalogue was not actually available, K's would impose heavy fines on the seller in question as part of their terms and conditions. It was these fines that were starting to worry management at Ocean, as the catalogue launch date was looming and not even a sniff of a Street Hawk game had materialised. The fines from K's catalogue must have been pretty hefty, as Ocean cut their losses with the freelance programmers and looked to bring the game in-house. With the deadline looming though, not enough time was available to make a game considered good enough for the licence, so it was agreed that they would chuck a few people on the project, give them 3 weeks or so to get something out, so K's had something to honour any mail order sales from day one. So who can get something half decent out in such a short amount of time? Well, they had some pretty big hitters to their disposal. Nigel Alderton, most famous at this point for the legendary Chucky Egg and Commando on the Spectrum, Mike Webb, who had worked on Hunchback 2, and Joffa Smith, he of Mikey, Hypersports and many other upcoming classics after this project. So what did they produce after a few weeks for K's Catalogue Game purchasers? Well, this. Quite a nice menu with plenty of options and redefinable keys, which is always a winner. Names of the programmers in the high score table, nice. You start by having to get your shields up for a rescue mission. You can't hold the fire button down here, just time your shots, which isn't that hard even for my 50-year-old reactions. And then it's really just Defender on a bike. Collect the humans and the spare bits for your bike, blow up everything else. That's it. Progress past this screen and you have the chance to get your shields up again before the revenge level. Ooh. All this consists of is no humans to pick up, just a bunch of helicopters trying to kill you. Get past this and it's back to rescuing again, but this time with more aggressive choppers, and that's about it. Rinse and repeat. And I suppose for the time they had, it's not too bad. I mean, it's not very good, but it's fast, scrolls really well, and plays pretty good too. The bike sprite is quite nice, and the baddies are, yeah, they're okay. I certainly didn't hate it and have certainly played worse. The big problem with it being essentially a Defender clone though, is that they knew they could never release it. It would get slaughtered by the magazines and tarnish their growing reputation. According to Joffa Smith in an interview he once did, there was no return address or details printed on the game. Ocean wanted nothing to do with it. So much so that they didn't even use it to honour an obligation to provide the game to Crash Magazine's subscribers who had the opportunity to choose the then unreleased game as part of their subscription. Crash Magazine were obviously getting annoyed with the constant delays and mentioned the game and the also delayed KnightRider 1 on more than a few occasions. People wrote in to ask if it ever existed, and Crash Magazine batted the ball firmly back in Ocean's court. If they then turned round and offered the Defender version, it would have looked pretty embarrassing after the anticipation of a long-awaited game for such a cool license. So Crash had to write an apology letter to its Gameless subscribers and give some alternative offerings, whilst Ocean continued with Paul Owens at the helm to get a new Street Hawk game out that was graphically more impressive in the shortest time possible. For Crash readers, that shortest time was 18 months after the initial subscriber offer. So was it worth the wait? Well, in short, no. First up, a positive. Look at this screen. It's so busy and I love it. Already makes me feel like I've got a premium product here. Redefined keys again, which again is always a plus in my book, and we are off. And we are off. No, seriously, we are off. The counter is telling me I'm going fast, but it certainly doesn't feel like it. Even if I press the turbo button, which gives me a whopping 285 miles per hour, you might as well knock off the 5 off the end of this and rename it to Moped Hawk.
Top speed 28 miles per hour. Moped Hawk makes all the bad guys cower. Moped Hawk jumps through the air. Moped Hawk feel the breeze in your hair. Moped Hawk fighting crime really slowly. Moped Hawk looks tasty like guacamole. If you don't mind waiting, we'll always rescue you. Let's be honest, it's a bit.
When you do reach the end of the level, you get the opportunity to shoot the 50 or so bad guys that are constantly robbing the same building, which is a fairly extreme way of dealing with them, pulverising them with lasers. But hey ho. Finish here and it's back on Moped Hawk. Rinse and repeat really, with slight variations on targets on the road. And yeah, this is it. For around 20 minutes until eventually, according to the long play I watched, the game just ends. Awesome. Okay, so I do like the graphics. Nice shadow effects on jumping gives you a sense that you are actually jumping, and the shootout screen is quite nice. But for all the time Ocean took to get this to market, bearing in mind they didn't want the Defender version that had 2 level variations, with a game that looks nicer but still has 2 level variations. It's all rather baffling. Crash Magazine were always going to be tetchy in their review, and they start it in a sarcastic manner.
After an intensive 18-month research program, Jesse Mac's superbike is finally ready to take to the main streets.
Ouch.
Well, was it worth the wait? Not really. This might have been a good game 18 months ago, but it's just another vertical scrolling race game with a few knobs on. The graphics are pretty, and there are some neat effects like the jumping and the shadows and everything. There's nothing very original or demanding about this game, and somehow it doesn't seem to have been finished off. For instance, when the bike finally packs up as a result of too much collision damage, the game grinds to a halt after you lose control. No doubt the licensing deal will ensure it sells well.
68% seems fair. Other magazines that were not as invested because of the subscription fiasco were pretty much on the same page though. Sinclair users summed up their review with the last few words.
Were it a budget title, Street Hawk would be nice. But it's not.
Your Sinclair, perhaps the most damning of the three, used the hawk part of the title for a bird analogy throughout the review, ending with,
Really, if I wanted some two-wheel action, I'd prefer Paperboy's BMX. Never has a game been more aptly titled than Street Turkey.
oh dear. So there we have it, and to be honest, I feel sorry for anyone who parted money for this game, mail order or from WH Smith's. Either way, you wouldn't have felt like you got your money's worth on yet another poorly done license. At least the whole fiasco did push Ocean in the right direction of using proper in-house development teams to produce games rather than freelancers who couldn't give two shits. Not my words, Gary's. Anyways, thanks for watching, and as always, I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.
Top speed 28